Hey y'all, I have some exciting news. Me and my tiny pink microphone, and Fred and Duke clearly, would like to share with you that I am starting a podcast. I wanted to get on and do a quick little video of just kind of like my little setup here, and I've made some notes about just a couple things I want to touch on, give an intro of like, first of all, me, if you don't know me, um, if you do, just a recap so you're caught up. And then the podcast itself, what it's going to be about, what we're going to talk about, what you can come to expect, all those fun things. So, first and foremost, the podcast, I have spent way too long trying to decide on a name for it. And along with the name comes with like the niche it's going to fit, or the topics we're going to discuss, or the style, if it's going to be like an interview podcast or an opinion based podcast or storytelling or whatever it's going to be. So, final decision that I made literally this morning, okay, um, was according to my calculations. That's going to be the name of my podcast. Thought it was super clever. Um, I'm really pumped for it. And I would like to just kind of go over with you guys, first of all, why we're naming it that, right? So, according to my calculations, first and foremost, if you don't know much about me, hi, my name is Brooke. I am a private tutor and I tutor subjects, all subjects for a range of ages, starting as young as like 2 and 3 in preschool material, all the way through. I've got like a couple college students. My favorite subject is math, hence the name of the podcast. But I do tutor in all the subjects and a little bit of everything. And so, with that title, I kind of figured our podcast could go into, I keep saying like our shared podcast, because you're going to be watching it or listening to it, and I'm going to be sharing all my things with you. So, we're sharing this podcast together, okay? Um, but yeah, so I plan for it to kind of cover a little bit of everything. I really struggled on finding like specific topics that I wanted to do, or a very like specific style of media I wanted to put out. But at the end of the day, I just want to have a talking space, right? Like, I talk for a living and I talk a lot. So I've been told. So I just kind of wanted to explore this world with you guys. Um, Seeing as how I do run my own business, we can have topics like entrepreneurship. I can talk about the ways that I do my scheduling, the ways that I do my marketing, connect with clients, things like that. I can talk about funny stories from my students. I can talk about the things that I cover with my students, right? Like material that's, or subjects and material that students maybe struggle with more, and we can cover on here. So it's kind of like open wide for everybody. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of a general, I hate to say like a vague answer of like, it's going to be everything, but it's going to be everything. According to my calculations, is also going to have room for guests to come and be interviewed. So Fred's hanging out with us today, but potentially my goal is to have some of my students on here, of course, okay from their parents, some of my clients, aka parents, on here, friends, family, anybody. I just want to make sure that I have a space that people can come and share things that they've learned. So again, the fact that I am a private tutor, one of the big things that I market myself with is the idea that I simply love to learn. I love to learn new subjects. I love to learn about certain things in history, learn all kinds of things. I love learning at its core. So, one of the things that I want to explore is how any type of like life lesson can be learned in so many different ways, right? And it may not be something that you wanted to learn, but we had to learn, right, Duke? Duke is, yeah, okay, you can see him. He usually takes the head just out of frame, so I look like I'm crazy when I'm talking to nothing. But yeah, so I wanted to go over a couple of things. First and foremost, of course, the title, the reasonings why, because I absolutely love math. And in my own brain, I like to apply an analytical thinking to almost everything. I was talking to a student the other day about how, like, she's extremely artistic and she loves, like, the creative, like, outlet that it lets her do whatever she's painting. And I was like, the only way I can connect to that is if I'm doing like a paint by number, because I want to put math into it. Um, like organizing or decorating my tree, I put the ornaments on in a repeating pattern. Like everything is math for me. I really enjoy math into the space that like I make sure that my calendar that's color coded fits in certain blocks and makes patterns, and then I do spreadsheets for all of my client information. So math is like my big thing. So I like applying lessons as I can. And that's not always going to be like a lesson about like finding the sales tax at a store, but like life lessons in general. Um, let's see. I wanted to talk a little bit about my background. So, like I said a second ago, again, hi, I'm Brooke. I'm a private tutor. I've actually been doing this full time for the past 4 years, running just my tutoring business. I actually have been tutoring since I was 12. I got started in it that way. That'll be a story for another day. We can go further into that. And then I am married. We've been married for coming up on 8 years. And then we've been together for a little over 10. And then we have our two dogs. As you can see, this is Duke right here. And then Fred's hanging out over there. We do live in Central Texas, so that may come up from there, here and there. The last thing I wanted to go over is what to expect, right? Like what is going to come out of this podcast. I'm going to be shooting for weekly episodes. I think that making a promise on certain days to upload, I want to make sure that it works well with my operating schedule because at the end of the day, my tutoring is my biggest thing. Being able to be available for my students is my top priority. So, whatever works the best with that. The reason I'm getting it started right now is because we are headed into Christmas break and I will have a little bit of extra free time on my hands. Students are wrapping up finals at the end of this week. So, I want to make sure that I can pick a good day and time to go from there. But they will be weekly episodes. So once you figure out that rhythm, it'll be every single week. I will have them available on at least Spotify and then grow from there. And then the last thing I wanted to go over is just thank you ahead of time. Thanks in advance for joining in, listening along, and I guess helping me do the math. Bye.
Checkmate, I couldn't lose. What if I told you none of it was accidental?